Good afternoon already, yes. In the beginning, you were all sitting in the back. Now you're sitting in the front. So I planned to say, well, I hope you all brought your binoculars to see me. I brought mine, but then there was a few people close, so that's all right. My name is Jos Hoonhout from VeriCon. I'm a director. At first, I'd like to know from you, first year student, second year, third. Okay, first and second year. So okay. My experience is in giving lectures here that, well, I must avoid to use terms that are not familiar yet. So I'll do my best to achieve that. I'm going to tell you a little bit about conceptual building and conceptual construction. Conceptual construction is something, well, different. Can we get, do I do it myself? In short about VeriCon, we have about 100 colleagues who work in Veldhoven near Eindhoven and in Druten, near Nijmegen. Mostly structural engineering and design, but also a little construction management, construction engineering. And especially software development, we have about 7 software developers in our company who are constantly developing our own software to enhance the process in construction. First, a few questions. Using these pictures, how many people do you think are active in construction in the Netherlands? Does anyone have a bid? How many? Well, someone at least has to say a number. Tell me, how many? Someone bidding more, bidding less? No? No opinions whatsoever? Okay, well, 320,000 people. How many companies do you think in the Netherlands these 320,000 people are in construction? This is your future, you guys and girls. No opinion also? Please give me some numbers. 700? 27? 27, that's very, okay, that's very optimistic. That would be very well organized, of course. 320,000 people in 27 companies. Any other ideas? 194,000. So average, there's only not even 2 people in the company. Of course, there are some holdings in it, etc., but some are big, but very many are very small. What's the amount of euros we have as turnover for the construction industry in the Netherlands? Anyone, any idea? I heard something like 1 trillion. That's maybe a bit steep. Let's use, let's say, something in millions or something in billions, and billions are Dutch miljarden. So, anyone? 10 billion? 20 billion? 50 billion? Anyone? Any ideas? How big is the business you're going to work in? 5 billion. Who's bidding more? Okay, I'll release you. I'll release you because the interaction is not really going any direction. So that's about almost 10% of the economy in the Netherlands. Actually, it's 9, but. And also there are a few problems in construction. I usually would start out asking more questions, but if you don't answer, the presentation will take very long getting all the answers. They're not coming, so I'll give the answers myself. There's about 10% waste still in the Netherlands in construction. If you look at these 76 billion euros and you look at 10% of the national economy, you understand that 10% waste is quite essential, quite big, quite meaningful. And also it has a relation with the margin. So what is the EBIT? I don't know. Does anyone know what EBIT is? The EBIT is earnings before taxes and interest. So that's actually what they make as a profit. So 2.1% of the turnover in the Netherlands from the construction industry is profit. And why is this important? If you have 10% waste and you have 2.1% profit, there are a lot of chances in the industry. But you have to do different things to get different results. If you will all be doing the same things we have been doing the past 20 years, you will achieve the same goals as we have in the past 20 years. And I think together you should aim to be better than us. If you look at the chart on the right, you see that's productivity through the years. It starts in, I have all the ones, they go back to 1950, but this starts in 1996 up to 2018. So that's mildly recent. And you see that the lower line is the development of productivity in construction, and the upper line is the development of productivity in any other industry in the Netherlands. So you can see that, well, last 10 years construction is picking up. It has been constant even since the 1950s. So the last 10 years there's actually something happening. But still we are far behind any other industry worldwide even. So I think these numbers are able to give you a perspective on what the business is you're going to be working in, unless of course you will become an artist or a DJ or whatever with your master's degree. So I'll go to my next sheet. Since you're, well, maybe not that familiar with the whole construction process as first year, second year students, this is a small sheet in which we can explain how the mainstream construction projects are managed. Usually there's a client who wants something. He gets project management, architects, all kinds of structural engineer, and MEP advisor. And together they make a set of specifications. In Dutch it's called bestek. Maybe someone has heard of it already. And contractors are invited to consider the specifications and to give a price on that set of specs for the building to be built. And you might have the idea that when this point has been reached and all the drawings from the architect and the structural engineer and the MEP engineer, familiar with the terms MEP engineer, structural engineer, etc., you all? Okay. Once these drawings are made and all the calculations are made in this phase, you might have the idea that you can all actually start construction, but that's not true. Most of the engineering is done after this point in time. There's a lot of structural design engineering, MEP engineering, and construction engineering being done after the point of contracting the contractor. So what you see in this picture, that we have a design phase and we have a build phase, and in the build phase is when the contractor starts his planning, his work preparation. He starts purchasing all kinds of elements from subcontractors, and all these subcontractors have to make shop drawings, and they all have to be checked, etc. So that's quite a big and long process with a lot of parties involved. So this as an outline. At VeriCon we think we have to take care, or well, not we alone of course, but it's not impossible, but we have to assist the construction industry changing from a craft to real technology. If you look back at the productivity development in the sheet I just showed, this productivity is quite low, and the only way, if we only do craft, if we do, like in Dutch is ambacht, so that's workers doing work and not really thinking about development and using technology to make construction much better, I think we will stay at the place we were with these big spendings on losses and little EBITDA, so low profit. Not that profit in itself is holy, but effective construction and affordable housing is. And I think we need all these things you see here to go from craft to technology. I'd like to explain a little bit about how the process, I'll tell a little detail about the process to give you an idea about how complex the process is. Here you see a building. We did some engineering for it. We were structural designer for this building. And I've pointed out that there are some floor slabs. And the construction industry, like I said earlier, that there's a misconception maybe that you can start construction when the design drawings are ready, because they are not fit for production. Actually, there has to be a lot of engineering done. And that for structural part of construction, you see that mostly the piles, for instance, are already made and the foundation is already poured in construction on site. But still, the engineering for the upper parts of the building are still have to be engineered. So we have a process of concurrent engineering of all kinds of construction parts, while at the same moment building a part of the building. So actually we don't know what we globally know what we're going to build whilst making the foundation, but we don't exactly know what we're going to build while we're already building. I don't know if anyone knows these types of floors. It's called breedplaatvloeren in Dutch. I don't know the actual best English word for it. I don't know. Precast floor slabs, we say. It takes, like this is for one floor. It may take up to 12 weeks to do the engineering for one floor. So you can imagine if we have 20 floors, of course, they won't be engineered all at once, and they won't be engineered all after each other, but this engineering will overlap. But it might take 30 weeks to do all the engineering for only the floors. I'm not talking about any MRP in the floors, not about internal walls or other structures, just talking about the slabs that are being precasted in factories. And this always starts with the detailed design phase, so taking all the specifications from the design phase and then looking into what is actually needed and doing elaborate engineering to make production ready information. Usually the contractor checks this information, hopefully in a week. Then there's 2 weeks to adapt, to take all the MEP into account in these slabs, to do all the structural analysis, to design the reinforcement, to draw the reinforcement. This, of course, is also, when ready, checked by the contractor and the structural engineer or the MEP engineer or whatever. And then, of course, probably all this information will get back, be checked again. Maybe there are some remarks. So this whole process takes 12 weeks. So if you look to this at this building, this is 22 stories. You can imagine that if I only look at the floor slabs, I'm not looking at doors, glass, MEP, plumbing, etc. I'm only looking at this small, actually, you could say small element of the total process. You can imagine what it means for all the other parts and the time taken with all that engineering. Well, we have a small, we have a small picture to show what's happening in this process. Here you see a contractor in the middle, you see the design partners on one side, and you see all the subcontractors on the other side. And all these subcontractors are going to make shop drawings. They're all going to send these for checking to the contractor. The contractor is going to coordinate between all these different subcontractors, but also he's going to send it for checking to the design partners. Then the work preparation usually is so busy that they start saying more often than once, well, you go communicate with each other without us. And then you see a kind of web of communication going about in each project in the Netherlands that costs a lot of time, has a lot of risk in it for not being accurate or not being right at the end of the day, and of course taking a lot of money. And well, maybe this also can give a little bit of explanation where the 10% waste comes from. It comes surely partly from this. And the construction industry has tried to solve this, and of course is solving this bit by bit. But I think there's in your future also a task for you here. The first thing we did, or maybe it's not the first thing, but like a main development is BIM. I think you're all familiar with the term BIM, I guess. Everyone familiar with the term of BIM? Maybe not in depth what it means, but at least on a global, I hope you will also, did you already have some lectures about BIM, maybe, or not? Are there lectures about BIM? Well, not many hands, so not many lectures, I guess. I think it's needed. There's a very good book about BIM from Mr. Easton. If anyone's interested, I'll hand out the title, etc. And the second way of, the second main development in construction culture, I should say, is conceptual building. And mostly this is making the building the concept. So like a lot of contractors develop standard houses or standard apartment buildings, etc., and try to sell or build this specific type of house more often than once. And the third way, and that's the way we as VeriCon are going to adapt more and more. Of course, we're supporting our clients in BIM and we support our clients in conceptual building. But in conceptual design, the process itself, we are actually developing ourselves. If you're going to Google, well, this is of course Dutch, but if you're going to Google concept housing, in Dutch conceptwoningen, you'll get many hits, and all these hits are from contractors who have developed their own specific conceptual house or housing. And what you will see is that none of these tools are actually exactly the same. They're globally the same, but they're all different, using different subcontractors, using specific subcontractors, using specific materials, specific designs, and I don't know why these contractors don't talk to each other. And let's, for instance, if we have 194,000 companies in construction industry in the Netherlands, of course, it's not that all these companies have their own concept, but there are, like in the Cobouw, which is a newspaper for construction industry, they each year have the top 50 biggest construction companies. All these top 50 companies, and at least the top 30, have their own concept, which is specifically engineered, etc. And in the past, mostly not even built once, because the developer always has to humor other people than the contractor itself. So if you go to any configurator you can find on the internet, in which you can configure the home of your choice in a specific plan. So this is not generic for every plan, but a few contractors, let's say 10 or 20 contractors, have these kinds of websites for their projects to sell houses. In this, of course, with a certain bandwidth, you can configure your home. In this, in such an interface, you can get directly the price for everything you change, and you can follow up by, of course, signing a buying contract for this. But the back end with this contractor who has this beautiful website, or whatever you think of the website, still in the back end has this process. So all this technology in the front end, which you see as a buyer, is not a representation of what's happening technology-wise at the back end of the construction process. At VeriCon, we therefore developed software that is more with which we can develop actually any home and any house. So our idea about the construction industry is that we must be able, with one set of tools, not of course only our tool, but a set of tools, we have to be able to actually more or less engineer any home, or let's say 80-20, 80% of the housing needs. We have to be able to engineer that with less effort, more result, lower failure cost and more profit for the contractor, and maybe even lower prices for the community. And this is what you see. You could think this looks like maybe a refresh from a computer or something, but this is actually, it's very difficult to show software you have, because I can show you code, it will show you nothing. I could show you an interface, it will tell nothing as well. But this is actually our software as a kind of a bot that does the modeling and all the structural design and engineering it by itself. Of course, all to code, etc. So this is reality is a reality that you will have to relate to in the future. So I think that not only as an architect, of course, if you're an architect, another question. When I started out here, I started here also. In my first year, we were with 150. About 75 got to the end of the study, and everyone at the start wanted to be an architect. At the end, of course, we were engineers, MEP people, structural engineers, and architects, etc. And I think in my year, I know 3 people or 4 people who have actually their own company, and the others are project leader, drawing, working with contractors, etc. But I'm curious, who wants to be an architect? Oh, let's say that's not even. That's usually in my past it would be 100%. So now I guess it's 50%. Who wants to go into structural engineering or structural design? Okay, that's more than in my time. And MEP or building physics. Construction, maybe no construction management, maybe. Okay, well, of course, the most is architect. We'll see if that happens. I wish you good luck with that. But the roles are actually changing as part of technological development. Of course, if we're going to make 80% in the future of buildings, not from a box, but from a system, I think. So not like what I showed you. I don't think we're going to do 80% this. I think we're going to do 80% this. And the other 20%, we're going to do exotic things like football stadiums, churches, big landmarks, etc. So there's a lot of work for architects over there. But for the like housing, apartment buildings, etc., there are going to be more and more systems that do that are bepalen in het Engels. Making out what is actually the building going to be, and not especially the architect. I think the architect is going to be active more in the design in the early stage, especially in the social context. So aiding developers to get things done, but not actually doing maybe most of the designing. I know there are contractors who say to architects, stay off with your hands from our floor plans, the internal side of the home or the apartment building, that's ours. You can only make the picture on the outside. So, and also for structural engineers, software is going to be very important. Of course, you need your basic knowledge as a structural engineer. You need to be able to do the structural analysis, no, well, maybe not by hand, but just about by hand. You have to be able to make a design with your own mind and not with a computer. But you also have to relate to automatic design processes. And maybe a few of you will be part of developing these kinds of programs. And for MEP, which I know less of course, because I'm a structural engineer, but I think for them it goes the same. So I think the roles you have, or you're going to have, are going to be different than mine or ours in the past. And I think, and I hope, they're going to result in better buildings and cheaper buildings, better profit and less waste and more sustainability. I think that's it for me. I don't know if I'm a little bit too fast. I guess I am. I had half an hour. I only used 23 minutes, so maybe you have some questions.
Well, thank you everyone for coming. If you need your future points, on top there are 2 forms laying down where you can write down your name and your student number. Since the scanners are broken, please only write down your own name because we will check. I would like to thank Jos for the lecture. And I got a present.